The contract sat on the mahogany desk like a guillotine waiting to fall. Zara Okonkwo stared at it for the 5th time that morning, her hands trembling slightly. 23 pages. Legal jargon that made her head spin. Numbers that felt like they belonged to someone else's life, not hers. $180,000 per year. That was more money than her entire family made in 5 years back in Lagos. More money than she'd earn in the next decade working double shifts at County Hospital. More money than her mother's medical bills, her siblings' school fees, her rent, her car payment, and her student loans combined. All she had to do was sign away her freedom. The penthouse study was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of Chicago traffic 20 stories below. Cade Blackmore sat across from her in a leather chair that cost more than her car, dressed in an expensive charcoal suit despite it being barely 9 a.m. on a Saturday. His dark eyes watched her with the patience of a predator who knew the prey had nowhere to run. She'd saved his son's life less than 48 hours ago. Now she was about to sell her own. Any questions? Cade's voice was smooth, cultured, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with volume. The Korean accent underlying his perfect English reminded her constantly that she was in a foreign world, speaking someone else's language, playing by rules she didn't understand. Zara forced herself to meet his gaze. If I sign this, what happens to my life? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Your life becomes exactly what you want it to be. Financial security. Your family's safety. Access to resources most people only dream about. He paused, letting the weight of the next word settle. In exchange, you become part of this household. You are bound by the terms outlined in that contract. Bound how? The question came out smaller than she intended. Exclusively. You work for me and my family. You live here. You don't speak about what you see, hear, or learn to anyone outside these walls. You protect Nicholas as if he were your own blood. Cade leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. And in return I protect you. That's the arrangement. Zara read the line again. Asterisk employee agrees to maintain absolute confidentiality regarding all matters, transactions, and personnel associated with the Blackmore household and affiliated organizations. Asterisk. Affiliated organizations. That was the mafia wrapped in corporate language. She thought of her mother in Lagos, weak from untreated hypertension. Her brother Marcus, brilliant enough for MIT but without the funds to apply. Her sister Chinese, only 16, whose school was falling apart. She thought of them all waiting for money that never came because she worked herself to exhaustion for wages that barely covered rent. Zara picked up the pen. Her hand shook as she signed. She sat in her tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood where police sirens were a lullaby, staring at the signed contract on her bed. The pen had felt heavier with each letter of her name. Now, in the gray light of dawn filtering through her broken blinds, the signature looked like someone else's handwriting. Someone braver, more desperate, or more foolish than she was. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. You will be collected at 10 a.m. Pack only essentials. Everything else will be provided. KB. Cade Blackmore. The mafia boss who'd arrived in the alley like an angel of death. She had 6 hours. Zara moved through her apartment like a ghost, pulling clothes from drawers that stuck with humidity. Her medical textbooks. Her journal. The one where she'd written all her dreams about opening a free clinic in Lagos. About proving that a girl from nothing could become someone. A photograph of her entire family from 5 years ago, before her father died, before everything crumbled. Her laptop. Her phone charger. The small wooden cross her grandmother had given her, blessed by a priest in Ijesha. As she packed, reality started to crack through the numbness. She'd signed a contract to live in a mafia boss's mansion. She'd signed away her right to tell anyone where she was. She'd committed to binding herself to a world of violence and secrets. What had she done? Her phone rang. Her mother's face appeared on the screen, the same photo from the family picture, looking younger, healthier, before life had worn her down. Zara. Why are you calling at this hour? Her mother's voice was thick with sleep and concern. Is something wrong? Are you sick? Zara's throat tightened. She'd rehearsed this lie 100 times. I got a new job, Mama. Better pay. Much better pay. I'll be living on site so I won't be able to call as much, but I'm going to send you money. Real money. Enough to see the doctor about your blood pressure. Enough for Marcus's applications. Enough. Zara. Her mother's voice cut through like a blade. What kind of job? The question hung between them like a knife suspended over water. A good one, Zara said softly. The kind that changes everything. She could hear her mother breathing on the other end. The sound of rustling sheets as she sat up. The mother's intuition, the same instinct that had guided her through her daughter's entire life, was activated. Zara Okonkwo, tell me the truth. And Zara couldn't. Not over the phone. Not with lies ready on her tongue like coins in a beggar's cup. I have to go, Mama. I love you. I'll explain everything when I can. Just trust me. She ended the call before her mother could respond. The car was exactly the kind of car Zara had never been inside before. A black luxury SUV with tinted windows that revealed nothing of the world outside. The driver was silent and professional, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her weekly earnings. He didn't ask questions. He simply loaded her single suitcase into the trunk and opened the back door. Zara climbed in and held her breath. They drove through Chicago's wealthy neighborhoods, streets widening and houses growing larger. The visible poverty of her own district fading like a dream upon waking. The SUV pulled through an elaborate gate, wrought iron with intricate Korean patterns, security cameras visible at every corner, and climbed a long curved driveway lined with manicured hedges. The mansion appeared suddenly, as if materializing from the landscape itself. It wasn't just a house. It was a statement of power, a declaration of wealth and control carved in limestone and glass. 3 stories. Modern architecture clashing beautifully with classical design. Floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city like an eye observing its subjects. The driver opened her door. Zara stepped out, and the mansion seemed to grow larger as she approached it. A woman was waiting at the entrance. Late 60s with steel gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a black dress with a white collar, the universal uniform of domestic help in wealthy households. But there was nothing subservient in her posture. Miss Okonkwo. The woman's Korean accent was thick, her English clipped. I am Mrs. Park. I manage the household. You will come with me. Zara followed her through the entrance. The foyer alone was larger than her apartment. Marble floors reflected crystal chandeliers. A grand staircase split in 2 directions, leading to different wings of the house. Oil paintings, originals she realized hung from the walls. Expensive art. Real money, not the kind people talked about but the kind that shaped the architecture of power. This is the East Wing, Mrs. Park explained, her voice carrying the efficiency of someone who'd given this tour many times. Family quarters. You will not go there unless invited. This is the main floor. Library. Dining room. Study. You may use the library. They climbed a narrow back staircase, the servants' staircase, Zara understood with a jolt. 3rd floor. Your quarters are here. You will have your own bathroom. Meals are served at 7 a.m., noon and 7 p.m. in the staff dining room. You will not eat with the family unless instructed. Mrs. Park stopped before a door and produced a key card. This opens your room and the medical supply room on this floor. You have access to nothing else without permission. Mrs. Park unlocked the door. The room was smaller than Zara had expected, but infinitely more luxurious than her apartment. A queen-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets. A desk with a high-end laptop. A television. Windows overlooking the grounds. An ensuite bathroom with heated floors and water pressure that felt like a massage. You start work tomorrow, Mrs. Park said. Mr. Blackmore will give you instructions. Nicholas is difficult. He has not cooperated with previous staff. You will not take it personally. What happened to the previous staff? The question escaped before Zara could stop it. Mrs. Park's expression didn't change. They were not suitable. You will be if you remember one thing. This household operates on loyalty and discretion. You see nothing. You hear nothing. You tell nothing. Do you understand? Yes, Zara whispered. Good. Mrs. Park handed her the key card. Dinner is in 1 hour. She left Zara standing alone in the room, the sound of the door closing behind her like the lock of a cell. The staff dining room was separate from the family's, a reminder of the hierarchy embedded into the architecture itself. 10 other people worked in the household, A chef, sous chefs, housekeeping staff, security, groundskeeping. They ate in polite silence, acknowledging Zara with nods but not engaging in conversation. At 6:55 p.m., Mrs. Park appeared. Miss Okonkwo, you will join the family for dinner tonight. Mr. Blackmore wishes to introduce you. The formal dining room was nothing like the staff quarters. The table could seat 20. Tonight, only 3 place settings were arranged, one at the head, one on each side. Cade sat at the head, dressed now in a charcoal turtleneck that made his sharp features even more severe. Nicholas was already seated, studiously avoiding eye contact with anyone. Zara, Cade said, gesturing to the empty seat. Sit. She sat. A server appeared with water, wine, and a first course of soup that Zara recognized as oxtail broth, Korean comfort food. Her grandmother had made something similar on cold Lagos nights. I wanted Nicholas to see you outside of crisis, Cade explained, cutting into his soup with precise movements. In his world you are the nurse. In this house you are family staff. There is a difference. Nicholas said nothing. He pushed the soup around his bowl, the red warning light on his continuous glucose monitor visible on his wrist. How are you feeling today, Nicholas? Zara asked gently. Fine, he muttered. Your glucose levels? Fine. Cade set down his spoon. Nicholas. Something in his father's voice made the teenager straighten. Miss Okonkwo will be managing your medical care from now on. You will cooperate with her. You will not give her difficulty. You will not attempt to circumvent her instructions. Is this understood? Yes, father, Nicholas said, and the formality of it, the coldness, made Zara's heart hurt for this boy who'd been so close to dying 48 hours ago. Good. Cade turned to Zara. Nicholas has type 1 diabetes, diagnosed at age 7. He has a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump. You will manage both. You will know his blood sugar levels at all times. You will know what he eats, when he exercises, when he's stressed. You will keep him alive, Miss Okonkwo. That is your primary function. Do you understand? Yes, Zara said. I'll need access to his complete medical history. Any allergies, medications, previous incidents of severe hypo or hyperglycemia. Mrs. Park will provide it, Cade interrupted. What you need to know is this. Nicholas's mother died 3 years ago. He has not been the same since. He takes risks with his health because on some level he no longer cares if he survives them. That is not your problem to solve, but it is your problem to manage. You will keep him stable. You will keep him alive. You will not ask questions about his emotional state or our family's history. Are we clear? Zara felt the weight of that statement like a physical pressure on her chest. A boy who didn't want to live. A father who loved him but didn't know how to save him. A family fractured by death and secrets. I understand, she said. Dinner continued in silence. After dinner, Cade summoned Zara to his study. Not the penthouse office where they'd signed the contract, but a more personal space. Books lined the walls. Photographs of Nicholas at various ages. A wedding photo. A beautiful Asian woman with kind eyes and a man who looked almost young, smiling like he hadn't discovered the darkness yet. Nicholas's mother. This is my personal study, Cade said, gesturing to the space around him. You are one of the few staff members allowed here. Mrs. Park is another. What you see, what you hear, it stays here. He opened a leather portfolio and slid it across the desk. Inside were documents, medical records, psychiatric evaluations, hospital reports. Nicholas's complete history detailed in the cold language of clinical assessment. Asterisk, patient presents with depressive episode following maternal death. Suicidal ideation reported but denied. Disordered eating. Reckless behavior with glucose management suggesting possible passive suicidality. Asterisk. Zara read through the medical history, the previous 3 caretakers hired and fired within months, each citing inability to manage patient behavior. The gaps in care, the way a boy in crisis had been shuttled between hired help and a grieving father who didn't know how to reach him. The last caretaker left 3 months ago, Cade said quietly. Nicholas was hospitalized twice in those 3 months. Severe hypoglycemia. Once from ignoring his insulin entirely. Once from overdosing deliberately. Zara's hands trembled as she turned the pages. She understood now why Kate had been so specific about keeping Nicholas alive. This wasn't just medical care. This was life or death intervention. I won't abandon him, she said. I promise you. I won't leave. Kate's eyes met hers. People always promise that. I'm not people, Zara said, and she meant it. I'm a nurse. And I don't give up on my patients. Something shifted in Kate's expression. A slight softening, barely perceptible. The contract specifies 3 months, he said. If you make it past that, we'll renegotiate. If you don't. He gestured vaguely. Life goes on. Mrs. Park will arrange for your departure. I'll make it past 3 months, Zara said. We'll see, Kate replied, but he didn't sound entirely convinced. Zara woke at 5 a.m., internal clock adjusted from years of early hospital shifts, and lay in the darkness, listening to the mansion breathe around her. No traffic sounds. No sirens. No neighbors' music bleeding through thin walls. Just silence and the hum of expensive climate control. She performed her morning ritual. Shower, prayer to the wooden cross, mental preparation for the day ahead. Then she made her way downstairs to the medical supply room Mrs. Park had shown her. A fully stocked pharmacy disguised as a closet. Enough medical equipment to rival a hospital. Blood glucose monitors. Test strips. Insulin vials in every type and dosage. Emergency glucagon. For lines. Everything a diabetic teenager could possibly need, organized with military precision. At 6:50 a.m., Zara knocked on Nicholas's door. No answer. She knocked again. Nicholas? Zara. I need to check your glucose before breakfast. Still nothing. Heart beginning to race, Zara tried the handle. Unlocked. She pushed the door open slowly. The room was dark, curtains drawn, and smelled of teenage boy sweat, expensive cologne, unwashed sheets. Nicholas was curled on his side in bed, wearing only shorts, his continuous glucose monitor clearly visible on his abdomen. The screen showed 89 milligrams per deciliter. Low. Not dangerous yet, but heading in the wrong direction. Nicholas, Zara said softly, not wanting to startle him. You're going low. I need you to get up. He groaned and rolled away from her. Nicholas. She moved to the side of his bed. His skin was cool, slightly damp. Classic signs of nocturnal hypoglycemia. I need you to sit up. I'm going to bring you some juice. Leave me alone, he mumbled, but he was already sitting up, the grogginess of low blood sugar making him docile. Zara ran to the kitchen, staff kitchen, she reminded herself, not the formal one, and grabbed a juice box and a protein bar. When she returned, Nicholas was sitting on the edge of his bed, looking like he might fall back asleep. She pressed the juice into his hands. Drink. All of it. I'm not hungry. Drink, she repeated, using the voice that had worked with uncooperative patients for 4 years. I'll wait. Nicholas drank. Zara watched his glucose monitor, waiting for the number to climb. 94. 102. 115 stabilizing. How are you feeling? She asked. Like you're suffocating me, he said flatly. Which is apparently my new life now. Your glucose levels suggest you were skipping your insulin again, Zara said, keeping her voice neutral. That's dangerous. Life is dangerous, Nicholas replied. Isn't that what my father's always hinting at? We live in this mansion surrounded by security, because the world is dangerous. So what does it matter if my blood sugar is dangerous too? Zara sat down on the edge of his bed. Your father hired me because he loves you. Not because he doesn't trust you. Because he's terrified of losing you. Well, he can stop being terrified, Nicholas said bitterly. He's already lost my mother. He's already lost everything that matters. I'm just leftover. The pain in those words was so raw, so young, that Zara felt her own chest constrict. She understood suddenly that this boy wasn't being difficult. He was drowning. You're not leftover, she said quietly. You're not replacement or consolation. You're his son. And I think. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I think he doesn't know how to show you that without sounding weak. But he does love you, Nicholas. More than anything. Nicholas didn't respond, but he also didn't push her away when she gently took his arm and checked his injection site. The insulin pump was working fine. It was his choices that were broken, not his equipment. I'll come back before breakfast, she said. I need you to eat something with protein. Your pump settings and your food need to work together. Can you do that for me? Do I have a choice? He asked, and there was a hint of dark humor in it that made Zara's heart lift slightly. Not really, she admitted. But you can make it easier by cooperating. #### Scene 6. The Mafia Undercurrent. Over the next week, Zara settled into a routine. Wake at 5 a.m. Check Nicholas's glucose levels. Manage his insulin and meals. Attend to any minor medical needs. Keep him alive. She began to see the patterns of the household. The way certain men came and went, always through a private entrance. The careful conversations that stopped when she entered rooms. The way Cade sometimes disappeared into his study for hours and emerged looking like he'd aged years. The security systems that were far more sophisticated than any private home should require. On the 8th morning, there was a commotion in the foyer. Zara was coming down from Nicholas's floor when she heard raised voices, Korean and English mixing, the tone aggressive and tense. She should have kept walking. Mrs. Park had been explicit. You see nothing, you hear nothing. But Zara paused at the landing. Through the railing, she could see Cade in the foyer with another man, older, with scars visible on his neck and hands. The conversation was clearly escalating. The territory is not negotiable, Cade was saying in a voice she'd never heard from him before. Cold, final, dangerous. Your son was in the alley, the other man replied. That sends a message, Blackmore. A message that he's vulnerable. Zara's blood went cold. My son was diabetic and in crisis, Cade said. He was saved by a medical professional. There is no territory issue. There's every territory issue. The Chun family sees an opening. There is no opening, Cade interrupted, and something in his voice made even Zara freeze. If the Chun family believes otherwise, I suggest you correct that misunderstanding immediately. The other man, Zara realized with horror that this was a subordinate, someone under Cade's authority, bowed slightly. Of course, sir. I simply wanted to inform you of the situation. Informed. Now remove yourself from my home. The man left. Zara pressed herself against the wall, hoping Cade hadn't noticed her. But of course he had. He looked up directly at her, his expression unreadable. Good morning, Miss Okonkwo, he said, as if he hadn't just threatened someone's life moments before. How is Nicholas this morning? Fine, Zara stammered. Glucose was stable. He ate breakfast. Excellent, Cade said smoothly. Please continue with your work. Zara returned to Nicholas's floor on shaking legs, understanding more clearly than ever what she had signed up for. This wasn't a household. It was the headquarters of something far darker. And she was now complicit in it. 3 weeks in, Nicholas had a severe hypoglycemic episode in the middle of the afternoon. Zara was reading in her room when her phone alarm went off. Nicholas's continuous glucose monitor sending a critical alert. Urgent low, 52 milligrams per deciliter. She ran. Nicholas was in the library, having apparently felt dizzy and tried to sit down. Instead, he'd collapsed between 2 bookshelves unconscious, his body limp and pale. Call an ambulance, Zara shouted to the shocked staff member who'd found him. Now. She grabbed his arm, checking his pulse. Weak but present. His breathing was shallow. She pulled out the emergency glucagon kit from the medical supply bag she'd begun carrying at all times, a decision that now felt like divine foresight. Her hands moved on muscle memory. Inject the glucagon. Position him in recovery position. Time how long until the glucose rises. Miss Okonkwo, what can I do? It was Mrs. Park, appearing like a ghost. Water. A bottle. And sugar. Juice, honey, anything. Once he wakes up, he'll need fast-acting carbs. Nicholas regained consciousness within 5 minutes of the glucagon injection, confused and terrified. Zara helped him drink orange juice, monitoring his vitals until his glucose climbed back to a safe level. By the time Cade arrived, Nicholas was semi-coherent but no longer in immediate danger. Cade's face when he saw his son was something Zara would never forget. A man's entire world contracting to a single point. He knelt beside Nicholas, checking him over like he was examining a miracle that might shatter. What happened? He demanded, looking at Zara. Hypoglycemia, Zara explained calmly, even as her own heart was still racing. Severe. His continuous glucose monitor alerted me. I administered glucagon intramuscularly, and he responded well. His glucose is now 180 milligrams per deciliter and rising appropriately. Ambulance? Kate asked. I don't think it's necessary, Zara said. He's responsive, his vitals are stable. However, I'd recommend we monitor him closely for the next several hours. If his glucose drops again or if he becomes symptomatic in any way, we should go to the hospital immediately. Cade looked at his son. Really looked at him. And Zara saw something crack in him. Not anger but fear. Raw, terrible fear. Why did this happen? Cade asked Nicholas quietly. Did you overdose again? Nicholas shook his head weakly. I didn't eat lunch. I wasn't hungry. And then? He trailed off, but the implication was clear. He hadn't eaten because he didn't care enough to bother. Cade's jaw tightened. He stood, pulling out his phone. All afternoon staff are suspended pending investigation, he said coldly. Mississippi Park, security will need to review footage of the library. I want a detailed timeline of when Nicholas was last seen, when he last ate, and who had access to that area. He turned back to Zara. Can he walk? Slowly, Zara said. I want to get him upstairs to rest. Cade helped her get Nicholas to his feet. They moved slowly to the elevator, the main elevator, not the service stairs, and Cade rode with them to the third floor. In Nicholas's room, Cade helped get his son into bed, then stood back, his hands clenching and unclenching. Thank you, he said to Zara, and it sounded like it cost him something to say. You saved his life. Again. That's why I'm here, Zara replied. After Cade left, she sat with Nicholas until he fell asleep, watching his continuous glucose monitor like a hawk, understanding that she'd crossed a line. She wasn't just a hired employee anymore. She was essential. The one thing standing between this boy and the darkness he was courting. The mansion's security office was something Zara had only glimpsed before. A room full of monitors displaying every angle of the property, inside and out. Now sitting with Cade, Mrs. Park, and the head of security, a tall, imposing Korean man named Mr. Choi, she watched footage of Nicholas's movements throughout the day. It was immediately clear what had happened. At 11 a.m., Nicholas had gone to his room to get something. At 11:30, he'd come downstairs and gone to the library. Surveillance showed him eating a small snack. An apple at 12:15, but no significant meal. No lunch. Nothing that would have balanced his insulin dose. He's doing it on purpose, Mr. Choi said bluntly, creating an imbalance between insulin and food intake. Passive suicidality, like the psychiatric reports suggested. Cade's expression was stone. I want him watched. Full-time observation. I don't care about privacy. I don't care about his comfort. He will not have another opportunity to hurt himself in my house. That will push him further away, Zara said quietly. All three men looked at her. With respect, she continued, her voice steady. If you watch him constantly, he'll feel like a prisoner. He's already grieving his mother, already angry at his father, already in pain. Constant surveillance will just reinforce that he's trapped. He'll find other ways. Do you have a better solution, Miss Okonkwo? Cade asked, and his tone suggested he genuinely wanted to know. Zara chose her words carefully. He needs to feel like he has some control. Right now, the only control he has is over whether he eats or not. It's the one thing his father can't force him to do. If you watch his every move, you're taking that away. But if you give him structure, predictable meals, times when he knows someone will be checking on him but not constantly watching, he might feel like he's making choices rather than being imprisoned. You want me to let my son decide when to kill himself? Cade's voice was sharp enough to cut. I want you to give him a reason to live, Zara replied. And right now, the reason you're offering is survival through surveillance. That's not a reason to live. That's a reason to find more creative ways to hurt himself. The silence in the room was oppressive. I'll adjust the protocol, Cade finally said. Structured meals. Regular check-ins. But I want to know immediately if anything changes. That evening, Zara found Nicholas on the mansion's rooftop terrace, something strictly forbidden according to the household rules she'd been given. But she understood why he'd gone there. Looking out at the city sprawling below, at the world beyond the walls. "You could get in trouble for this," Nicholas said, not turning around as she approached. "So could you," Zara replied, moving to stand beside him at the railing. They stood in silence for a long moment. "You told my father that I need control," Nicholas said finally. "You're right. But the only control I have is over dying. And it's the only time I feel powerful anymore." Zara's heart ached at the honesty of it. "Your mother," she said gently. "You couldn't control that." "No," Nicholas said, his voice breaking slightly. "I couldn't. She was just gone. One day I had a mother who made me food and worried about my glucose and took me to doctor's appointments. The next day she was dead. And my father was giving orders like he could prevent it from happening again, but he couldn't. He can't. Nobody can. So what's the point of trying?" "The point," Zara said, "is that your mother wouldn't want this for you." "You don't know my mother," Nicholas said bitterly. "No," Zara agreed. "But I know what it's like to lose a parent. My father died when I was 19. I thought about joining him sometimes. Thought about how easy it would be to just stop trying." Nicholas looked at her for the first time since she'd arrived on the roof. "What stopped you?" "My mother needed me," Zara said. "My siblings needed me. And eventually, I realized that the person who was grieving most wasn't my father in heaven. It was my mother on earth. My death wouldn't bring him back. It would just hurt her more." "My father doesn't love me," Nicholas said. "He loves what I represent. The continuation of his empire. His legacy." "I don't think that's true," Zara replied. "I think your father loves you so much that he doesn't know how to be a father instead of a businessman. But love, Nicholas, sometimes it looks like trying to control things. Sometimes it looks like building walls and hiring security and throwing money at problems. That doesn't make the love less real." Nicholas turned back to the city. "My mother was a painter. Did you know that? Not for money, she didn't need money. But she loved it. She'd spend hours in the study just creating these beautiful things. My father used to watch her while she worked, just watching. Like she was the only thing that mattered." "She was," Zara said softly. "And now she's not here. And he looks at me and I think he's disappointed. Because I'm not her. I'm not beautiful and talented and perfect. I'm just a sick kid who screws up his glucose levels and makes everyone worry." "You're a boy who's grieving," Zara said. "And that's allowed. It's allowed to miss her. It's allowed to be angry. It's allowed to hurt. But it's not allowed to hurt yourself, Nicholas. Do you understand? That's the one thing that crosses the line." He didn't answer, but he didn't argue either. After a long moment he turned to her. "If I eat dinner tomorrow without fighting about it, can I come up here? Just sometimes. Just to think." It was breaking the rules. But it was also a reason to live. "Yes," Zara said. "But you have to promise me that thinking is all you'll do." "I promise," Nicholas said. And somehow Zara believed him. The mansion's security was on high alert the next morning. Men in dark suits moved through the halls with purpose. Cade was in his study, doors closed, conducting business with someone over the phone in rapid-fire Korean. "What's happening?" Zara asked Mrs. Park as she passed through the kitchen. "The Chun family is making moves," Mrs. Park said tersely. "They're testing boundaries. It is delicate." Zara didn't need to ask what delicate meant. It meant violence was a possibility. Around noon there was a visitor. Not the usual staff member, but someone formal. A woman in her 50s, wearing an expensive white dress and carrying a purse that probably cost more than Zara's monthly salary. Mrs. Park's entire demeanor changed. She straightened. Her expression became neutral and respectful. "Miss Okonkwo," Mrs. Park said formally. "This is Mrs. Young. She is an associate of the family." Mrs. Young looked at Zara with eyes that missed nothing. "You are the nurse? The girl who saved young Nicholas?" "Yes, ma'am," Zara replied. Mrs. Young's expression softened slightly. "Good. That boy needs someone who cares about his well-being. The men in this house, they care about power and legacy. But a boy needs someone to care about him as a person." "Mrs. Young," Mrs. Park said gently, "perhaps we should. Let me speak with her." Mrs. Young interrupted. Miss Okonkwo, do you know what it means to work for this family? Do you understand the world you've entered? Zara swallowed hard. I'm beginning to. This is a world of violence and power, Mrs. Young said. Cade Blackmore is a good man as such things go, but he is a man who has built his life on ruthlessness. His enemies are numerous. His allies are only loyal until profit demands otherwise. And his son. Mrs. Young's eyes grew sad. His son is innocent in a way that will not keep him safe. I know, Zara said quietly. I'm trying to keep him alive. Physically and otherwise. Mrs. Young smiled slightly. Then you understand more than most. Listen to me, girl. In this family, the boy is everything and nothing. He is an asset and a liability. He is loved and used. Do you see? The world does not make room for someone like him to simply be a boy. Then I'll make room, Zara said. In this house with me, he gets to just be a teenager who likes comics and hates math homework and misses his mother. Mrs. Young studied her for a long moment. Your parents raised you well, she said finally. Despite this world's efforts to break you, you still have goodness. Protect that. And protect the boy. This family needs both. She left before Zara could ask what she meant. 2 weeks into her employment, Zara was called to Cade's study late at night. It was 11 p.m., unusual for formal summoning. She found him with the lights dimmed, whiskey in hand, looking at photographs. Not the formal portraits that hung throughout the house, but candid shots. Nicholas as a small child being held by his mother. The three of them at the beach. Cade and his wife on their wedding day. Both of them glowing with a happiness Zara had never seen in the man. His mother's name was Min Jae, Cade said without preamble. It means gentle and talented. She was both. She was also a catalyst. A reason to become someone better than I was. He set down the photograph and looked at Zara. When she died, I thought Nicholas and I could build something from the ashes. A better life. But I don't know how to be a father. I only know how to be a boss, a businessman, a man who controls things. And Nicholas, he doesn't want to be controlled. He wants his mother back, which I cannot give him. No, you can't, Zara agreed. But you can give him something else. What? Cade asked, and the vulnerability in that single word was devastating. The truth, Zara said. Tell him that you're broken too. Tell him that you miss her. Tell him that you don't know how to do this, but you're going to try because he matters more than your pride. That's what he needs, Mr. Blackmore. Not control. Not money. Not security systems. He needs to know that his father loves him more than he loves his empire. Cade's jaw clenched. If I show him that weakness, others will exploit it. Probably, Zara admitted. But Nicholas will survive it. And he might survive his grief. Cade was quiet for a long time. Then he picked up his phone. I want you to have full access to my personal schedule. If I miss a meal with Nicholas, I want you to schedule another one. I want you to make sure that we actually talk, without business getting in the way. Is that an order? Zara asked. It's a request, Cade said. From a man who is afraid of failing his son. From a man who recognizes that he's hired someone wiser than himself. But the mafia world, as Zara was learning, doesn't allow for personal growth without consequences. 3 weeks into her employment, the Chun family made their move. Nicholas was in the library studying when they came. Not through security, but with insider help. Mrs. Park found him missing during the afternoon glucose check. Zara's alarm went off. The continuous glucose monitor showing Nicholas's location wasn't in the mansion. She ran to find Cade. The study was chaos. Men in tactical gear. Phones ringing. Cade's face a mask of fury and fear. The Chun family has him, Cade said without preamble. They're using him as leverage. They want me to cede territory. Where is he? Zara asked. An abandoned warehouse in the industrial district. They'll keep him alive for now. He's leverage, not a target. Then we get him back, Zara said. It's not that simple, Cade replied. If I give them the territory, I lose control of this city. If I refuse, they might hurt him. So what are you going to do? Zara asked. Cade looked at her, and she saw a man torn between two impossible futures. The man who loves his son and the businessman who controls an empire. I'm going to get him back, Cade said finally. And I'm going to do it without ceding territory. Which means I'm going to have to be willing to get him out, even if it means violent confrontation. I'm coming with you, Zara said. No. Nicholas is my patient, Zara interrupted. If he's injured, traumatized, or in medical crisis, I need to be there. You need me. Cade looked like he might argue, but instead he nodded. All right. But you stay in the vehicle. You do not go into the warehouse. You are there only for medical support after we extract him. Understood. Understood, Zara agreed. The warehouse was dark, cold, industrial. Zara sat in an SUV with 2 medical techs, listening to the radio chatter as Cade's team moved through the building. When they emerged, Nicholas was with them, pale, shaking. His continuous glucose monitor showing a reading of 206 milligrams per deciliter. High probably from the stress but not immediately dangerous. He's hyperglycemic, Zara announced, moving into action as they got him into the vehicle. Stress response. His glucose monitor shows 206. I'm going to check his pump. Make sure it's still functioning properly. Nicholas looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. Zara. I'm right here, she said. You're safe now. I've got you. The ride back to the mansion felt eternal. In the vehicle, surrounded by the sound of police sirens in the distance and men on radios, Zara worked to stabilize Nicholas. Not physically, because his blood sugar was manageable, but emotionally. She sat beside him, held his hand, talked to him in a low voice about the things that mattered. His mother. His father. His life. His future. When they arrived at the mansion, Cade appeared in the garage immediately. He went to Nicholas, held him, and Zara saw something break and reform in him. His priority shifting visibly from empire to son. I'm sorry, Cade said to Nicholas. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from this. I'm sorry I brought you into this world. It's okay, Dad, Nicholas whispered, and hearing him call Cade that, not father, but dad, with all the love and forgiveness of a child, made Zara's eyes burn with tears. In the days following the kidnapping, Zara understood more fully what she'd agreed to. The rescue had been successful but violent. One of the Chun family's men was dead. The territory remained in Cade's possession, but the price had been measured in blood. Cade's image was shifting. He was becoming someone who would kill to protect his son, and in the world of organized crime, that was either a weakness to be exploited or a characteristic to be feared. He chose to make it feared. But with that choice came a cost. Zara found Cade in his study late one night, looking at the same photographs he'd shown her before. Minjae, their son, their life before darkness. You're wondering if you made the right choice, Zara said. It wasn't a question. I'm wondering if I have the right to make choices that affect a boy who didn't ask for this life, Cade replied. I'm wondering if protecting him from one danger just exposes him to a dozen others. Yes, Zara said. That's all true. And you're still his father. And he still loves you. And he still needs you. At what cost? Cade asked. Maybe that's not for you to calculate, Zara said. Maybe that's for him to decide when he's old enough. Maybe all you can do is love him as well as you can and hope it's enough. Cade was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, the contract specifies 3 months. You've been here 4 weeks. You've already surpassed the previous staff's record. And you've earned the right to ask for anything you want. I want to stay, Zara said. I want to keep Nicholas alive and safe and as happy as possible, given the circumstances. I want to help you become the father he needs instead of the businessman he resents. Even though you know what I am? Cade asked. Even though you know that by staying, you're complicit in violence and crime? Yes, Zara said, and she meant it. Because I also know that you're a man who loves his son more than anything, and that's worth something. That has to be worth something. Cade turned to face her fully. When did you become my conscience, Miss Okonkwo? Probably around the time you became my employer, she replied with a slight smile. Zara stood on the rooftop terrace with Nicholas, watching the sunset paint Chicago in shades of gold and crimson. My father told me something, Nicholas said. He said you threatened to leave if he didn't spend more time with me. I did no such thing, Zara said. I would never threaten a mafia boss. He said you were very persuasive, Nicholas continued with a slight smile. He said you made it clear that his son was more important than his business empire. I made my professional recommendations, Zara said diplomatically. As a medical professional. Nicholas laughed. The first genuine laugh she'd heard from him since she arrived at the mansion. You're still here. After everything. After the kidnapping, after learning what my father really does, you're still here. Someone needs to keep your glucose stable, Zara said. Is that why you're staying? Nicholas asked. Just for the medical work? Zara considered the question seriously. No, she admitted. I'm staying because your father is trying to change and you're trying to heal, and this family is broken but not beyond repair. I'm staying because it matters. And because... She paused. Because I think I've found something here that I didn't expect to find. What's that? Nicholas asked. Purpose, Zara said. Real purpose. Not just clocking in and clocking out. Purpose that matters. Nicholas nodded thoughtfully. Well, I'm glad you're staying. Because nobody else could handle my father like you do. And I think I'm going to be okay. As long as you're here. As they stood together, watching the city lights begin to twinkle below them, Zara understood the true cost and reward of her choice. She'd signed a contract to save Nicholas's life. But in doing so, she'd also saved her own. Pulling it back from the edge of meaninglessness and anchoring it to something real. Below them, in his study, Cade was making calls. Not about territory or business, but about Nicholas's school. About therapy. About becoming a father instead of a boss. The Mafia empire would continue. Violence would still exist in the shadows. But in this mansion, in this small corner of darkness, there was light. There was a nurse who believed in second chances. A boy who was learning to live. And a father who was learning that love was stronger than fear. 3 weeks into her employment, Zara had thought the contract was a prison. Now, watching the sunset with Nicholas beside her, she understood it was a choice. And she chose to stay. 1 month later, Cade called Zara to his study again. Not the penthouse office, but the personal study where he kept the photographs of his wife. On the desk lay a new contract. I'd like to make this permanent, Cade said. Not just employment. Family. I'd like to hire you not as a caretaker, but as a family member. Increase your salary. Give you medical autonomy. Give you security and support and... He paused. Give you a reason to stay that isn't just money. Zara picked up the contract. The salary was enough to change her family's life. The benefits included bringing her mother to America, securing visas for her siblings, medical coverage for her entire extended family. But more than that, the contract included something else. A clause that stated Nicholas would be included in all major decisions affecting his medical care and his life. A clause that stated the family would participate in grief counseling. A clause that gave Zara authority to recommend changes to the household structure and security measures if they affected Nicholas's well-being. It was a contract that took the Mafia empire seriously, but prioritized the boy's humanity above all else. I have one condition, Zara said. Name it, Cade replied. That you actually go to therapy. That you actually deal with your grief instead of drowning it in business. That you actually try to be the father Nicholas needs. Cade smiled slightly. I already started. Last week. Good, Zara said. She picked up the pen and signed. As she wrote her name, she thought of that first night in the alley, of a dying boy and a phone call that changed everything. She thought of the mansion and its secrets, of Nicholas's pain and Cade's fear, of the impossible choices they'd all made. And she understood finally that this contract wasn't a cage. It was a promise. She called a Korean Mafia boss. He saved his son. Together, they're learning to rebuild a family from the ashes of pain.